Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Sarah Pearson, and Cipriano Lucario will be joining us. We want to thank Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper at SAMHSA for giving us this opportunity to work with tribes and to speak with you today. All right, Mark, can they see my screen?
Yeah, it looks good, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Well, so we've been around the tree all these seasons. We've started with module 1 of exploring and gathering the information and knowledge and procedures that we need to develop a tribal action plan. We learned a little bit about the background of the Tribal Law and Order Act. We learned about tribal coordinating committees and starting to gather information and the data that we'll need to do a TAP. That was in module 1. Then we moved on to module 2 on planning and preparing. We looked at an example tribal action plan and the efforts that were happening and are happening in Oneida Nation. And we looked at what it looks like to develop a tribal action plan, going through the slides and the different workbooks for tribal action plan planning, visioning, goal setting, objectives, and outcomes. And then we talked about acting and adjusting and implementing our tribal action plan in module 3 during sort of the spring season. And today we're talking about reflecting, assessing, and revising a tribal action plan that we've created now that we're in module 4. Dance around the seasons. So today we're going to talk about reflecting, assessing, and revising. We've got a couple of tracks here, leadership track and community track. We're just going to mingle those and intertwine them. We're going to talk about evaluating goal outcomes and discussing adjustments that might need to be made in your tribal action plan. We're going to talk about how important it is to build trust, to deepen collaboration with your partnerships, using tribal action plan as a unifying strength for policy and practice updates. We'll think about how to leverage planning and add innovative goals, because once you've got that experience of planning, you might as well stretch yourself and do something innovative. And using the TAP to pursue future grants, that's something that's really a good thing to do. For the community track, we're going to talk about evaluating the early signs of the TAP's impact and make all cases to celebrate all of the early successes. Then we'll review the TAP quarterly, ask the community to review the TAP quarterly and update it at 2 years. After 24 months, a TAP can get a little stale, so it's important to update it. We ask the community to ask questions and vote on adjustments so they're involved in all decisions. Then we talk about the balance of the TAP legacy with leadership. We know that leadership in tribes turns over every 1 year or 2 years or more. So we want to make sure that a tribal action plan lives on and beyond the turnover of leadership. So we want to get them involved. Then we've got a nice little surprise to share with you, something on social marketing, an Ignite campaign to ignite awareness and keep communities and leaders engaged. And we want the community to be also recruiting members to get involved. So there's always fresh places, fresh people, fresh faces involved in the tribal action plan work. Cipriano, did you want to add anything before we begin?
No, I'm just really happy that we're including that social marketing and social media plan. I apologize if you guys hear any background noise. I'm trying to feed 2 birds with 1 seed, so I'll be muting my mic. But I really like the thought process and the importance of using social media and social marketing techniques to help drive the tribal action plan efforts. Thank you.
Sure. So as we shift into this 4th module, we're thinking, we've got a tribal action plan that's been created. So once it's been created and implemented, how do we define the success that we've had? So let's think about that from an example that we pulled from the field. This is all based on a group that we've been working with since 2017. So I'm using a lot of their examples that I've just adapted for our use today. So when we're talking about evaluation and monitoring, we need to really remember that the tribal action plan is a living document. It's not something that's created once and put on someone's shelf or these days left in someone's hard drive. It's updated monthly or quarterly, and it's evaluated not just by the people in the tribal coordinating committee or your TAP team, but it's evaluated by the people to ensure that it meets the needs of all tribal members. So some examples of evaluation and monitoring could be the following: that the TCC meets with the TAP stakeholders to ensure compliance with TAP on the fourth Tuesday of each month at 1:30 p.m. in the old courtroom of the tribal office. I love how that's so detailed, but that shows that they've really thought about it. You've got to share those details so people know where and when and who can meet to talk about the tribal action plan and why you're meeting. The TCC will develop a database to track each goal. Now, that could be something that you put together on a piece of paper. It could be more sophisticated, such as on an Excel database. It could be a matrix that you set up with each of the goals right on the tribal action plan itself. Also, the TCC shall update the tribal council quarterly and may meet with the tribal council as needed. I think that's an important statement to make because you want to make sure that the leadership is in the loop and they're part of the process. And then also they include another strategy. The tab shall be placed on the tribe's website for members to view. Very important. Accessibility is critical. Members will be encouraged to provide feedback and or sign up to get involved. Quarterly updates of the goals and objectives shall be provided. I think that all those 4 strategies are so important. Cipriano, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I think it's important that any tribe or organization that is developing some kind of strategic plan or tribal action plan really makes it useful for them. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have heard or observations we have seen is how do we maintain momentum for this strategic plan? How do we keep the energy moving forward? And by weaving in ways that you could use the TAP as a tracking mechanism and really be that North Star for your prevention programs and collaborative partners so they could see how their material fits into the plan is really what we have seen one of the best practices in maintaining that momentum, that living document is actually being used and not just kind of referred to. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. I like this slide right here. The example that they had shared in their tribal action plan, they wrote that the TCC participants and members use an empirical research approach to gather purposeful observations of events and track activity, objective, and goal achievement. That's wonderful because, how do we know when our goals have been achieved? Did we reach our goals? Did we reach our goals towards our vision? They also clarify data is collected and monitored through process, outcome, and effectiveness evaluations completed by who? The TCC and or subcommittee members and maybe some community members. You have a lot of knowledge in the community that's around you. And there are some people who love doing data collection and love crunching numbers. That wouldn't be me, but I know people who could help me do that in my community. So what kind of data are they collecting? They're looking to increase numbers and decrease numbers. Let's take a look. The data that this team wanted to do was that they wanted to track the number of tribal advisory board meetings. They want to increase those meetings so that the movement keeps moving forward and the leadership is tuned in, tapped in, and turned on to the work. They want to increase the number of consumers enrolled in substance abuse services. That's fairly clear. They want to increase the consumers in healing to wellness court because one of their goals is to start a healing and wellness court. They want to increase the referrals to from medical to behavioral health. Nice. They want to increase the number of referrals from tribal court and police to substance abuse services. Excellent. And they want to increase, and I like, this is my favorite one, they want to increase policies, protocols, or procedural updates from tribal departments or tribal governance created in response to the TAP effort. And these all respond to the goals that they have, and we're going to share those a little bit later in this Prezi. They also want to increase the number of shared tools, such as a screening or intake form used across departments. Very helpful. One of their goals is that they want to start having the departments, the various tribal departments working together on this effort, which is an excellent thing. They want to decrease the number of substance abuse cases, decrease domestic violence and sexual assault cases, decreased tribal court cases, decreased cases of social services department, cases coming from social services department, and they wanted to decrease citations and arrests from tribal police. So they're tracking a lot of local data. They probably didn't reach out to the local epicenter to get this information. This is all local information that they're tracking for their TAP. Cipriano, did you have any thoughts about this?
For me, when I look at this slide, for a lot of the tribes that we work with or some of the observations, there's a power in language, and we know this in Indian country. And so being very thoughtful about, how these goals and what's being done and those action words, Sarah, I always think of, how you challenge me even in my own writing or perspectives, and what's the action in this statement. And so as you could see here, I like how you just put increase and decrease, because it really kind of keys us in on what is the action in these goals and what are we doing, what's the action even in the action plan. And so, these are very valuable outcomes or opportunities that a tribe could track to really see how the system is working. And I think a lot of these goals are looking at that kind of system organization, the effectiveness or the increased efficiency in the system, and not getting too lost in the weeds and micromanaging your programs. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. I think one of the trickiest parts of doing this work is to try to keep things clear cut. If you can get down to the clarity of what you're trying to do, it'll help everybody involved. And that's easier said than done. Okay, we round out with this slide on how is success defined. And I really like how I put in the yellow bullets below, they were very clear in writing down what they see as success. And they say, we recognize the need for incorporating an integrated management of the TAP. That's so wonderful. The TCC represents each socioeconomic department necessary to prioritize the design, delivery, accessibility, acceptability, and effectiveness of addressing crime, safety, and substance use disorders. Brilliant. It's clear, it's tight, it tells you what they want to do. And they've determined that success would be if they achieve heightened awareness of the substance misuse issue in the community and efforts underway to address that, reduction of crime and substance use disorders, increased public safety, effective collaboration between community partners, reliable and validated data collection and analysis, increased community understanding in prevention and intervention, and successful completion of our TAP timeline and goals and objectives. Very nice. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is, I think, where community conversations, a community-based participatory research opportunity really lends itself to the community owning the tribal action plan, the tribal nation owning the tribal action plan. How is success defined? Now, in some of these bullet points, like increased public safety, it could be as clear cut as, simple arrest or court dockets about crime. Yet public safety from maybe from a community-based lens might have other potential outcomes. So, when we really look at, defining success, a tribe that owns the action plan, that owns the readiness of the particular challenges are facing them, these kind of conversations with community members and collaborative organizations and tribal services might find those successes aren't as clear cut as just arrest numbers. Yet it's going to be more ownership to tribal identifying success, which again creates ownership of the action plan and the usefulness of the action plan versus just kind of looking at data sets and just doing this kind of report. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're off to a good start in trying to understand what we're trying to evaluate and what success, how do we define success, and knowing that clearly. That's really important as we reflect and make adjustments to the tribal action plan. So talking about making adjustments, imagine you're running down the road of life with your tribal action plan journey, and then you hit a flat tire. And there's all kinds of reasons to hit a flat tire. For example, people in the TCC might stop coming to meetings. What's up with that? Something could be happening. Either they don't think that we're moving forward quickly enough, or they don't understand it, or they haven't been rallied to. The troops haven't been rallied. leadership might be absent, or they might not see that it's an important activity if it's not supported by a federal grant, for example, or they might just be too busy. There might be the concept of competing priorities or events, and the tribal action plan might not be as sexy as a neat powwow event that they want to go to. Or maybe it was scheduled unfortunately in a bad time, maybe in the summertime where there are a lot of events happening. COVID happened. Well, that's a big one that happens even with programs that are funded. We lost a major champion, advocate, or worker bee. That's a big one. That's oftentimes we do rely so much on just a few people to kind of motivate us and get us going. Members don't respond to some activities. And then funding from a major contributing program ended. That's a big one, when funding that came from one program that seems to have someone who comes to all the meetings and they can't come anymore because they've got to run looking for another position and they've got competing priorities to take care of. Cipriano, what are your thoughts on how to address any one of these?
You know, the pink elephant in the room is COVID. Yet, you know, what we've been learning from tribes is the COVID responses is we're building the plane as we're flying. And that the things that, you know, who is tracking the exponential growth all of your tribal services have gone through and continually to grow as they adapt to these COVID challenges. Just tracking the growth of teleprevention services, telehealth services, you know, who's tracking all of that, you know, what has been some of the strengths helping your families navigate this COVID crisis? What resources have been to potential? That is, you know, unfortunately, I believe there's going to be future COVID-like challenges evolving because of the current state of our society and the impact of COVID. So if you know, everything that you guys have gone through in this last year and a half, you know, if we're able to track it, see the successes, understand the challenges, what you're developing is a crisis response plan to an epidemic. And that can be a very valuable addition to the tribal action plan that is focused on substance abuse prevention. Is there should be a component around crisis management. You know, what is our crisis response when an epidemic happens? So, you know, I would look at any one of these and say a strategic plan should or could help address some of these challenges. Yet some of these challenges are going to be awesome lessons learned in additions to the action plan itself as well.
Thank you. Just some of the ones that I'm just looking at immediately, like the members don't respond to some activities. That could be perhaps maybe a community readiness assessment. It needs to be reevaluated or looked at. Maybe we didn't catch what members were trying to tell us, what they're looking for. Competing priorities, that's tricky. I think saving lives is a huge priority. But sometimes sporting events, you know, it's hard to fight against things that have a sexier overtone to them. So I think it's a little bit of promotion, an awareness campaign that maybe needs to be addressed early on. Maybe one of your objectives or one of your goals could be a huge campaign on building awareness and thinking ahead down the road to where you can make sure that you put the leaders out there in front of the parade and create the event for them to show up at and just let them do what they do best, which is lead the parade. So these are just some things to kind of think of as you're reflecting on your TAP. Thinking about these kinds of concerns are really important. And also I threw in the rainbow slide just to kind of remind people that the managing complex change is just that. It's complex change. Everyone goes through this. It's not just you. There are things that need to be attended to, but you've taken care of one, which is having that blue square, your action plan and resources and skills and training, incentives, and a vision statement. So as long as you have all those components, you should be doing pretty well. Cipriano, any thoughts?
Yeah, and you could look at any one of these bullet points and actually see the potential. You know, one tribe we were working with, it really challenged us to think of, you know, how are the tribal social services, how are the tribal health programs sharing the successes of the prevention efforts you are completing, that your team is working towards, that your team is meeting, or even going above and beyond? What's the feedback loop to health, wellness, growth, to our tribe? Maybe, in the United States, we have this state of the nation where the president of the United States kind of presents its perspective and its direction and its hope for the future. How does that work in our tribal health system? How are we feeding back to the community? Because sometimes it's very easy to get lost on the deficits, or always struggle with the challenges, or get stuck on the trauma. Yet, how do we connect with our community to really share that, these are the things that we accomplished. These are the things that we have learned. These are the efforts we have completed. And this is where we're going tomorrow with the lessons learned of today. What's that feedback loop? Because we need everybody, and we're going to lose champions. We're going to lose advocates. We're going to lose worker bees, because people get pulled in their different directions of their own personal growth, their own personal life. So how are we setting the stage and creating seats at the table and informing our other relatives of what we're doing, so they can be part and assist of the cause? I think those are all valuable pieces when we really look at opportunities to engage the community, mobilize the community, and find partnerships to contribute to this important work.
Thank you. All right, let me get to the next slide. So when you're reviewing your TAP, since you have experience planning, I would suggest you leverage your planning experience to add relevant or innovative goals when you're reflecting on your TAP. Think about things like this. This is, as I promised, we're going to share 5 goals from this wonderful example of a group that developed a tribal action plan. And I adapted, doesn't follow their plan exactly. I adapted it to keep it to 1 page, but per goal, but and remove the names to protect the innocent. But I thought I'd share this with you. They have a wonderful vision, and I did adapt that as well. We unite to live in a healthy, safe, and culturally grounded tribe. So that's their overarching, big, huge, and enormous goal called the vision. And this is for the next 2 years. Their first goal is to build awareness. And if they build awareness of substance misuse, its impact and efforts to address it has been raised among community members as measured by updated CRM scores that they'll do in 2 years. But look at this wonderful list of objectives. They're going to conduct a 2-year random study of youth to inform social marketing awareness campaign. They've got a wonderful timeline here of what they're going to do to support the activities that they're going to do to support that objective. They've got a lead specifically mentioned, and they've looked at writing out a sketch out of the outcomes that they expect for this objective. They're going to implement school-based program life skills. They're going to host awareness events. They're going to conduct outreach to key individual leaders in the community. They're going to ensure continued participation in the Families Against Narcotics organization. They're going to co-sponsor a professional conference addressing substance use disorder, mental health, or co-occurring disorders. And they're going to coordinate a Unity Youth Council and promote the Tribal Coordinating Committee's TAP activities. This is an excellent plan to build awareness of the work that's happening on substance misuse. Their goal 2, they're going to create a sense of belonging for the community members, which includes spirituality, cultural teachings, and personal responsibility to community wellness. I like that. Look at their objectives. They're going to share traditional ways through the Thursday craft night. I imagine that's going to help bring people together weekly. We're going to do drum classes, have Native American artists, speakers. We're going to have secure funding for supplies and increasing the number of participants that come to that event. They've got somebody slated to take care of that work, the cultural director. They're going to develop a plan to reduce substance use disorder and mental health stigma. Very nice. They're going to host a historical trauma conference. They're going to develop a policy that supports a sense of belonging, establish peer support group training with the Boys and Girls Club. Apparently they have a Department of Justice grant to support that work. They're going to host Honoring Our Elders Feasts of 4 Seasons. They have an elders board that will be established. They have a youth council that is helped through Unity, and they're going to educate on culture through the community college. So they're getting their local community college involved. This is a nice building of a number of partners. Cipriano, do you have any thoughts so far?
No, I really like this. Is a great example. And again, we're just trying to share as many observations as we learn. But one thing that I really like about this example is that, as you could see, the objectives aren't so lost in the weeds that it limits the expertise of those programs and organizations that are providing those activities. That they use the English language and the flexibility of those English words to have more than just one organization or one program meet and contribute to those overall objectives.
Nice. Let's move on to their third goal. I like how they didn't bite off too much, because sometimes, you know, if you don't have a lot of people to help you, you might want to stick with 2 to 3 large goals and then break it down into objectives. But this group has been working now for 4 years, and they've really expanded out, and they've got a meatier, stronger, deeper, more involved tribal action plan. Their third goal is that they're going to implement emergency response and intervention for substance misuse crisis. Nice. They're going to develop a crisis response team. They've got the community health nurse and other people helping with that, along with the TCSE director. They're going to open a TAP portal on Google and do some Zoom training. They're going to establish a communication tree. That's helpful when you have an emergency response intervention that you need to put together. They're going to update the tribal directory. That's pretty important. Going to coordinate a directors meeting, attend executive council sessions, change policy on controlled substances. Nice, they've got a policy in there, good. And they're going to increase council accessibility in support of TAP. And they've got a whole list of activities under that. That's pretty important. I think that was a very good use of a goal, and implement emergency response and intervention. Let's take a look at their fourth goal. And these are also just to give you ideas, you know, that you can beg, borrow, steal some of these, use them, adapt them, adopt them, improve them. And that's why we're sharing them with you now. We want you to flex your planning muscles. Goal 4, coordinate activities and programs with a focus on wellness. I love it. They're going to do an elders food delivery program. They're going to create digital stories for youth. They have Head Start sporting events planned, trail walkers, a farmer's marketing cooking class, garden plots, commodities garden. They're going to develop evaluation tools. That's very thoughtful. And they're going to gather traditional medicines. Very helpful. Before I move to the 5th goal, Cipriano, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
No, I think, again, this is very straightforward, very flexible objectives. It's not boxing anybody into specifics, and yet still providing creativity to the experts in the community and outlining how they could contribute to the overall tribal mission and vision of wellness.
And they rounded out with their 5th goal through partnerships with tribal court and law enforcement. They're going to provide community-based individualized services to reduce crime, recidivism, and substance abuse for members under the court's jurisdiction. Very thoughtful. They want to implement a healing to wellness court. So that in itself, I find that interesting. Just implementing a healing to wellness court could have been a goal unto itself, but they went even broader with this goal 5. They also want to hire a victim advocate for the court. The chief judge is going to help with that. They're going to develop a peacemaking court, research emergency guardianship, increase elder involvement in the court, and increase police presence in the school and the Boys and Girls Club. So that's, I think, a fairly well-rounded tribal action plan. There's a lot going on, a lot of big, meaty goals, but they're all goals that any one of these could continue into a fresh tap for the coming 2 years. So additionally, you could weave in other important components, and I've included these too. I apologize though, Cipriano, this is like a fire hose of information, but knowing we only have a little bit of time, I want to give these good folks all the information that we can share with them. When you're reviewing your tribal action plan, you come up with what else could we do? How can we make this better for the next 2 years? And in addition to some of those ideas that we just shared with you through that excellent tribal action plan, consider the following components that you see here and see the river that's running through all of those: culture. Try to review your tribal action plan and see if there are places in the next coming few years that you could interweave in cultural ideas into any one of these following ideas of prevention, crisis service, clinical practice, recovery support, or workforce. And I'm going to just share some ideas with you on each one of these areas. Recently, beyond the exchange programs and making a PSA, the National Drug Take Back Day has been an event that has been a big deal for the Department of Justice. Usually comes out in October. It's pretty fast and furious, but you might keep an eye out for that kind of news on that activity. It's very helpful. And community and provider education. Prevention ideas are really good to weave into your TAP. Cipriano?
Yes, no, I think I love all of these. I think that these are all some of these can be intervention, some of them can be prevention. PSAs, digital stories, youth developed efforts, National Drug Take Back Day. There's needle exchange programs, gun buybacks. This perspective is done, and then community provider education. Every one of you on the call probably has some aspect of one of these bullet points in the field of prevention, if not all of them, within the work that you guys do. And again, who's able to track that, and how are you developing internal tribal advocates to advocate the tribal leadership to help develop the resources you need to continue these efforts? And that is, how can your efforts in these areas help the tribal coordinating committee advocate on your program's behalf? So what are the successes that you could share in these activities that your tribal advisory board could go to tribal leadership and advocate on your behalf? Thank you, Sarah.
Crisis services. This is an interesting piece, distributing and maybe even training on the naloxone, implementing fentanyl safety recommendations. They say that once fentanyl ends up in your community, deaths will soon follow. Peer recovery specialists working in emergency departments to link patients to treatment immediately post-overdose. That is so critical. I mean, when someone is saved in the ER and then they're released back to the world that they just came from, they're usually surrounded by the same elements that they were with just before their overdose. So it's so important to think about the whole 0 to 10, everything that you need to do for someone who's having trouble. Any thoughts, Cipriano?
When you really think about this for Indian country, a lot of our tribal nations and tribal organizations are training community members because of the crisis and epidemic of the opioid abuse and misuse in Indian country, because alcoholism in Indian country. And so when you look at these crisis services, I think a lot of times in the professional field, we think about these things as programs or professionals doing it. But when these are in Indian country, we're teaching grandmothers to do some of this stuff. And we're teaching people in early recovery skills to run well-variety groups or Al-Anon groups, and so, crisis services, it's not always a professional that's implementing these things. So, it gives us a chance to be also a little bit more flexible in thinking who in our community can provide this effort, who is already providing this effort. What do they need to continue supporting the tribe around these crisis services? Or what kind of trainings are needed to start expanding our workforce so they can implement these things to save our tribal citizens? So again, it's not always professionals doing this work in Indian country. I know a lot of tribes that are educating their grandmothers because of the challenges with opioids and naloxone. So I really think that, you know, depending on who is actually implementing these crisis services is going to give your tribal coordinating committee a greater understanding of what are the healing services needed, what are the training services that are needed, and what kind of debriefing and follow-up should be supported for those people that are taking this responsibility on providing these crisis services.
Thank you. Clinical practice. So this is nice, implementing screening and brief intervention and referrals to treatment, co-prescribing naloxone to high-risk patients, and implementing a hub and spoke model of care. Recovery support, sober living facilities. Now there's an idea. I love that. And also safe and affordable housing. Sometimes if you're a single mother, it's really tricky and you may be getting addicted. It's hard to get away from people that you need to get away from and be safe for your children. Recovery high schools and colleges. That's something that when I was at Georgetown University, they were looking into recovery high schools because there are so many young people that are going through the stigma of being addicted, but they still need to get educated. They're still high school students. So a recovery high school is sort of an interesting new concept. Workforce, that's a really good, important thing. Continuing education, standardizing core competencies for students. Cipriano, do you have any thought on workforce? I know this is something that it gets often left behind, but you know, if you're in recovery, you've got it's a tricky path to sustainability and keeping going. So having a helping hand getting back into the workforce is really important.
Well, workforce challenges are well documented in Indian country. And I think, you know, what we are observing or what we are seeing is that by engaging tribes in continual prevention and wellness efforts, one theme or trend that we're seeing is that as a community implements maybe more GONA models and they start healing and supporting wellness of more tribal citizens, they're having higher rates of volunteerism. And they're having young people who are stepping into the realm of higher education be considering of more social services and caseworkers and services that are more supportive to the community than the typical doctor, lawyer, or police officer model that we have seen maybe, you know, over the last maybe 40 years. So, you know, by educating and dedicating support to the community, providing those services, you know, starting prevention and early interventions with young people, we're starting to see an expansion of workforce or higher rates of volunteerism. But I think that's good for any tribe. How are we creating seats at the table so community members can assist and support the wellness work that we are doing? Because your projects, your prevention, your programs could be already stretched thin. And bringing in a new grant, bringing in new responsibilities to an already stretched thin department or staff is only going to create more challenges. And so how are we creating seats at the table for our community members to contribute to those wellness efforts? And that might be considering, you know, what are the skills that we know are important that we have in our community, looking at our cultural knowledge keepers, our traditional knowledge keepers, our language speakers, you know, the people in early recovery. Can we bring well-briety training, 12-stop peer recovery group training, and start to support them facilitating groups on our program's behalf? So, you know, workforce has been well documented. It's a big challenge. I don't see anything coming through the pipeline that's going to be an immediate fix. Yet the biggest workforce we have that is untapped is our own community members. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And I believe that also when someone is in recovery, it's no better time to start maybe thinking about a different career as well, reaching into themselves as they're changing personally inside. They may want to change what they do for a living as well. So continuing education is really helpful. So I wanted to share this with you. This list of topics just came out in an email that I received a couple of days ago from Fox Valley Technical College. They're asking and reaching out to tribal communities. They're begging for demonstrations of success in the number of these fields. Look at this. They want to see what people are doing in Indian country to do any one of these ideas: drug endangered children's programs, detox services, telehealth services, trauma-informed approaches in healing historical and intergenerational trauma. The field is waiting for demonstrations of success. So if you're looking for some interesting things to add to your tribal action plan as you review, revise, and improve it, think about any one of these things. Medication-assisted treatment and MATs blended with culturally based treatment models. People are theming for new information and a demonstration of success. So it's go, 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 get going. We're all waiting to see you guys succeed and make small mistakes and learn from those mistakes and share those with us so that we can see that this is happening and we can share the good news on what you're doing in the field. Cipriano, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I just want to say that I think it's important that we continue to have these kind of discussions and to share ideas and to share concepts. I do know that a lot of tribes, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and we do share. We have been sharing. Sharing is a part of a lot of our traditional and cultural ways. And so I'm very happy to hear that Fox Valley is reaching out. And the reality is that, the answers are already in our community. And so it's about kind of, rekindling them, re-engaging them, and building trust that those are the right things to do. And so how do we begin to share? How do we begin to learn from each other and not have to reinvent the wheel? And so I have to take a look at this. I'm really excited to kind of learn more about what Fox Valley is really starting to open up. But this is an awesome list of opportunities.
They're looking for stories that they can promote in webinars, so you could become a new star with a Fox Valley webinar. But it's really important. It made me think that it's important for you guys to know that you are ahead of the game. You're on the cutting edge of what is happening in Indian country on tribal action planning. So lean on the experience that you have. Trust your team to push the boundaries. Go beyond your safe zone and reach for an innovative goal. Show us the way. Show us what you can do.
And one example I just would like to share too is, and I know that you kind of pointed it out, was that cultural-based treatment and then the medicated assisted treatment, MAT, medicated assisted treatment. And one tribe, they actually integrated the two because they said that their culture has medicine. And so it's cultural medication assistant treatment. And their model looked at, when a person is ODing and naloxone or medication is used to bring them back, what does re-entry for them coming back to this world actually look like? And so not only do they think about waking them up from an OD, but also smudging them down and using their traditional ways to welcome back their spirit from that situation as well. So that hybrid approach and acknowledging their medicine first, working in partnership with the medicated assistant treatment model, and taking that cultural approach of welcoming back a tribal citizen from ODing is very, very unique. Now it's a very small tribe in a real rural part of the country, and maybe those kind of techniques and services might be a little easier, but it was one of the most unique efforts that we have seen that integrated that what they called CMAT, culturally medicated assistant treatment. Again, great ideas. We learn from other ideas, and then we take a look at those ideas and see how it fits for us. So I'm really excited to see what Fox Valley learns from this and shares.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Fox Valley does a lot of the Tribal Training and Technical Assistance Center for the Department of Justice, the work on CTAS, if you were wondering about that. And just as a follow-up to something that you made me think about a moment ago, Cipriano, Tony Curtis, one of our Tribal Action Plan teammates, said that this group may be interested in doing a tap coffee hour. So put that in your bonnet, think about it. If this group meeting with us today would be interested in joining us for a monthly tap coffee hour, put it in the chat box that this is something that is of interest to you. And we will start to think about it in our new contract year coming up in October.
And I think that that would be extremely helpful because, and again, for the participants on the call, we are just one TA center under one federal administration. There are hundreds of federal administrations, and just under the Tribal Law and Order Act, there's 9 federal agencies with multiple programs underneath it that most of them have training and technical assistance for. So actually, I'm super excited to be able to connect with other TA centers so we could have discussions with tribes that are connected and not siloed, and we could strategize how training and technical assistance can work in collaboration for a tribe and be outlined to support the tribe in multiple levels in a shorter period of time than doing it one by one, siloed in nature, and competing with time over your guys's 40-hour work week. So, you know, collaborative training and technical assistance that works connected and not stepping, tripping, or stretching you guys in different ideas would be a goal of our TA Center. And that could be easily done within SAMHSA, but when we think about like Fox Valley, a TA Center that's under the Department of Justice that might be working with your tribal courts or your public safety, how can SAMHSA's efforts that work in behavioral health and prevention contribute to those discussions and have collected conversations versus, you know, trying to stretch you guys or silo you guys out even more. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Lynette likes it. Lynette from Ho Chunk. Thanks, Lynette. All right, let's move forward. Building trust to deepen collaboration is so important. And it's one of the things when you're reflecting on the work that you've done in the past on the TAP, it might be something that maybe kind of gets away from you, but how do you deepen trust and build collaboration? And I wanted to remind everyone about, this is stuff that we've been thinking about before. Remember this image back a few modules ago, this sunflower, when with a tap, all can follow a common vision. So you can get all these tribal departments working together on, they might have SAPs of their own, strategic action plans of their own, but they could all come together in common ground under a tribal action plan. But to do that, you're working with some very busy people with maybe probably very opinionated. They have their own styles of leadership or worker bee-ishness, whatever they're going to do. So we have to tread ground a little lightly. And I thought it would bear repeating to share what Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Stephen R. Covey, produced a few years ago. The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. I wanted to share 13 behaviors of high trust leaders. That it's really an important part that we usually gloss over and don't really discuss, but I just wanted to bring this up. He has 13 behaviors, 5 focus just on character alone. Talk straight and tell the truth and demonstrate integrity in the work that you do. Demonstrate respect and show that you genuinely care. Create transparency in the work that you're doing with the Tribal Action Plan. Be genuine, open, and authentic. Don't hide any information. Be transparent. Right any wrongs, apologize, and make restitution if someone has been offended. Show loyalty, give credit to others, and be loyal to those who are absent. For example, if Cipriano wasn't here, I'd tell you all that this was his idea. Just kidding. Competence behaviors, deliver results. If you're hired to do something, accomplish what you're hired to do. Get better every day, learn and improve, and be thankful for the feedback that you get from others, your colleagues, and act on it. Confront reality, meet issues head on, and address the tough stuff directly. These are all things that you already know, but I just want to make sure that we share about this, because when we come together in partnership, it's sometimes we hit butt heads with people that aren't used to working with us. Clarify expectations, practice accountability, and take responsibility for for results. And finally, some that go across both character and competence. Listen first. That's always a real big one. I know Simon Sinek talks about that a lot. Listen before you speak and don't make assumptions. I have that problem sometimes. Keep commitments, state your intent, and then do what you say you will. And extend trust. I like this one. Don't withhold trust because risk is involved. And that really works when you're trying to recruit young people to get involved. Just because they're young and it's a risky thing to get them involved because they may not follow through, don't withhold your trust because that risk is there. Cipriano, any thoughts?
No, those are all really good. And I have to admit, when I was reading through the list, I was like, oh man, how many of these like do I have? And it's not a scoring sheet or, an assessment on what do you have and what you don't have. I think it's just, quality assurance to remind us. I think in our heart of hearts, we know how important those are, even for one of ourselves. And so this is just a friendly reminder, and don't drift too far. But, I know that a lot of these are just core components of that traditional or those cultural protocols that we have within our communities. Thank
you. And this last slide in the section is, I love the wolves in this picture. It's really incumbent on leaders, whatever level of leader that you are, that you take care of your team, even the quiet ones and the ones that don't engage. Balanced leadership and legacy. Tony Curtis brings this up a lot. He's part of our team. He says, the Tribal Action Plan is at risk of becoming inert if the tribal council leadership that comes into power in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years doesn't know about it, doesn't support it, isn't behind it, doesn't understand it. So part of your outreach campaign really hopefully will include constant outreach to leadership, making sure that they understand what's in the Tribal Action Plan, reporting often what the celebrate the accomplishments that you have, and just get them involved and have them be part of the work from the very beginning, even before they get elected. Get all those who are in the campaign running for office, invite them to a tribal coordinating committee meeting and just familiarize them with the work that you've already been doing, so that this one will not be something that they would just put on the shelf when they get into power. Cipriano, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I love this slide, and I like how you integrate a lot of this kind of conceptual thinking, because I truly believe that these kind of concepts are already within our tribal traditional knowledge, our cultural teachings, our principles, and just the way that we think about our communities. And this is just a reminder, that, we're only going to go as fast as the slowest person. And that, a true leader is the one that spends time and energy and creates that safety for us to be moving forward. I truly believe that these are values that all our families have. And this is just a simple reminder that if you're, your tribal leadership or your program leaders, just to, what is effective leadership? We should be having these conversations on maybe every 2 or 3 years. I know doctors, nurses, psychologists get trainings on important models every couple years, so they don't drift too far from the fidelity of offering those efforts. How does that work for Indian country, and especially around those traditional principles or those traditional knowledge? How do we have those kind of gatherings that just remind us of those important pieces that we hold true and sacred in our community, so we don't drift too far? So I'm really appreciative that we enter these slides in as a gentle reminder of effective leadership, because not, as much as I want to say this, and I say this with the utmost respect, some of our forms of government and how we get our tribal governments, through the election process, we don't always have the most effective leader on council, because that's just not the way that the process always works. So how do we have these discussions about effective leadership without challenging, current leadership? So I know that's a mouthful and goes in a big circle, but I really think that conversations around grooming good leadership starts early.
Thank you. Extra added bonus for those of you who stayed with us this far. I know it ended, the due date was yesterday, August 31st for the 2021 grants, but just so you know, a foundation called NDN, like the letter N and the letter D and the letter N, run by Nick Tilson, NDN Foundation, has $250,000 unrestricted grants that are awarded with very little request of information. It's just amazing. To tribal-led, community-based organizations, these grants will prioritize the importance of gathering around food for cultural events, ceremonies as a form of community engagement. Spiritual leaders are experts in the communities they serve, the prestige and importance of medicine men and women, and the time between solstice and the harvest needed to honor the time of ceremonies. So check out NDN Foundation for their coming 2022 grants. This kind of grant is unrestricted funding that you could use to help support your tribal action plan efforts. Little extra bonus there. And we're going to wrap up with a little thing called the Ignite Sparking Community Change through social marketing. Well, that's a mouthful. Mark, can you pull up the link to that document? It's about an 80-page document that's a tool that can help you level up your tribal action plan by getting you into the mind of a social marketer. And social media is just one slice of the pie of social marketing. Just thought I'd share a few little pages of this wonderful tool with you, and then we'll wrap it up for today. The document includes will give you fundamental understanding of what social marketing is all about. I know I didn't really know much about it, but it gives you the blow by blow what you need to know and how it can be used to benefit Native individuals and communities. It covers the core concepts of the social marketing framework, key terms used that you should be aware of, and the basics for the theory behind social marketing. One of our colleagues, Marian Bitsui, put this together. We're so proud of her. It provides an introduction to social marketing, developing a social marketing plan, and launching your campaign towards implementation. I love it. It helps you develop your message, and it gives you some activities to do, group activities on what to do to get into the whole social marketing idea. I love this image. They talk about different types of channels of social marketing through social media, traditional print campaigns, online campaigns, events and outreach, wearables like swag. You see a lot of companies develop t-shirts and balloons and those kinds of things, and public media relations. They also provide a lot of interesting worksheets to talk about the channel pros and considerations for the list they have here. Cipriano, any thoughts on this so far?
Yes. Social media and social marketing is really almost embedded in every step of the way in the action plan, raising awareness of the community, developing marketing material, your flyers, your Zoom calls, your billboards, your flyers, your graffiti, your street art. All of this is encapsulated. And this, if I was a grant writer developing resources and we had a strategic plan or a social marketing plan that could be vetted and be embedded in every grant we write, now we're building resources to drive the system versus always having to create a new social marketing plan. And this toolkit really walks you through every step of the way of consideration for a solid social marketing plan that could be adapted to weave in multiple different programs and projects under its focus, and gives you tracking mechanisms for your tribal advisory board to say, we had 40 different events go out this month. We had 37 events go out this month. We advertised them 3 times every 2 weeks. So this is an awesome tool. The graphics are great. It really breaks down step by step the process. And if you work this toolkit, in the end, you'll come out with a very strong social marketing effort to help drive, share, and assist the tribal advisory committee raising the awareness or providing resources to the community and cross-checking and mapping out its progress and efforts.
Mark, if you can put the link in the chat box, that would be really helpful for the Ignite social marketing campaign. I like how they even talked about the stages of evaluation for anyone who's interested in that. Very helpful. Differences between impact, outcome, process, and formative evaluation. And they have this wonderful roadmap. The visuals just really connect with me. It takes a very compound idea and just, step-by-step visuals. And in here, they include a campaign example from the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health Medicated Assisted Treatment campaign. Very, very cool. Very nice. So I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to the participants to see if anyone has any questions about what we presented today. Cipriano, if you have any closing statements.
No, I think if we don't get the link to the Ignite, please, we also have your email because you registered, and what we could do is also just maybe follow up after the webinar to, if you're interested in the Ignite toolkit, please just let us know in the chat box that you think this would be good, and if it is good, then we'll send it out to everybody on the webinar. So just acknowledge if you think this would be helpful. If you would like this, put it in the chat box, and we could share the link either during the final few minutes of this one or after the call as well. Yet I think social media and social marketing are vital tools, and especially under these COVID scenarios, the growth of tribal teleprevention support and services has grown astronomical. And I really think that everything that you guys have accomplished in this last 2 years is going to be tools for the future of your prevention services, because these are just great opportunities. You guys been building the plane while you're flying. This is, what's the word? Unprecedented what we're going through. Yet, there's a lot of lessons learned that could strengthen our services now that we have kind of walked through this epidemic or crawled through this epidemic, and still relatively healthy and still contributing to the health and wellness of our citizens.
And I'm getting emails down there. Cipriano, can you put my email down in there while I'm writing this down, just to make sure if people we can't get Mark to put the link in there, I will email it to people. They'll email me. Any questions from, I guess we answered all their questions. Any thoughts or concerns or comments? Laura is asking us, in what ways could communities pay for ways to fund plan for ways to fund TAP activities? Oh my goodness. Cipriano, what do you think?
In what ways could communities pay for ways to fund TAP activities? I'll be honest with you. I think there's a lot of things that tribes are already doing, and you guys are collecting a tremendous amount of information, but what do we do with it? If your community has implemented a gathering of Native Americans training, you are collecting a wealth of community-based knowledge. If you are implementing a community readiness model, you are creating starting points for goals, outcomes, and activities. Low-tech, low-cost models that can really strengthen the prevention planning processes of Indian country, your community events and your gatherings, if you have a cultural calendar, you have logic model development already happening. So I think, it's sometimes it's not, how do we develop this plan? The question would be, how do we start to synthesize all the efforts that we're doing into a kind of federalese type lens? And that's the beginning of your action plan, because your action plan is the vehicle, it's the keys to drive the vehicle for your tribe, yet the readers of the action plan are going to be the federal agencies. So you almost have to translate that community effort into a linear action plan so you could help the feds catch up to the efforts that you guys are doing. So, sometimes it's not, how do we do this? Because that's one of the challenges. Oh, this is an unfunded mandate. Yet I do think that we have a lot of social gatherings. We have a lot of cultural gatherings. We have a ton of community events. You guys are doing a lot of surveys. So it's not so much planning out a new event. Maybe your first couple of steps are just synthesizing and organizing the things that you're currently doing, so we have an understanding of what we're already learning. Because I know a lot of tribes say, well, we're tired of surveys, we don't want to do a new survey. Maybe we don't have to do a new survey to start the action plan, but let's pull together all of the current prevention efforts that are happening under your current prevention portfolio, and let's just put a lens to those and see what's being collected, what is happening, what are their hopes, what are their deliverables in the next year or two, and let's just start pulling that information together before we actually start, really starting to dream about what we could do.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Cipriano. So I'm going to make another advertisement for all of you who are still on the line. We are going to put together the links for all of the recordings to module 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll send that out probably in late September, early October, for you who want to kind of gather those, review those recordings or share them with your colleagues. Also, we'll put out a call for anyone who might be interested in a TAP coffee hour, an idea that our colleague Tony Curtis came up with, which I think is a really good idea, to just field questions as they come from the field on what TAP is all about, any kind of challenges or successes people are experiencing out in the field right now. Cipriano, any thoughts on what you'd like to cover in the TAP coffee hour?
No, I think most of all is continuing to share what we're learning, continue to share what we're observing from Indian country. I think having our office in Washington, D.C. and having our pulse on what we're learning from the feds and just trying to feed that back to you guys as quickly and as fast as possible. And I think what's most important is what's working in your tribe. How do we share it with other tribes so they don't have to reinvent the wheel? And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of growth and opportunity.
And in addition to that, I want to really, in this coming year, do a deep dive on looking and digging out sources of funding for a tribal action plan to help our friends who are kind of at their wits' end as funding starts to sunset. We've got to keep the wheels going. So I understand that. So I'm going to start looking into that as well. So I think that's all I've got, Cipriano. Any last thoughts, or Tony, anyone from our TAP team that have joined us have any thoughts they would like to share or any questions before we go?
I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the important work you guys are all doing. We really appreciate that you guys taking the time out of your guys' important work to just listen in, and hopefully we're sharing good resources for you. And please send us questions. I can speak for Sarah and myself. We love to do homework. We love to learn. So, it doesn't always have to be, what's going on out there. Just, send us a question or two and help let us kind of strategize or think out of the box as well. So, we're a resource here. We are service orientated, and we very much appreciate trying to lend a helping hand. So thank you for the time and the energy of being here. And we hope you see us as a resource for future work.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us.